Hello everyone, my name is Gabriele Kowalski. I'm sure many of us off the top of our heads can refer to an endangered species that we all know. That includes elephants, rhinos, and gorillas. And even Netflix is helping people know about the endangered state that tigers currently find themselves in the new show Tiger King. But what if I told you about a species so unique and so different, yet so highly sought out for, and you may have never heard of it? Today, we're going to be talking about the most poached animal on the planet you've never heard of, specifically the pangolin. Today I've brought a 3D model with me, but for those who cannot see the model, I'll be using and referring to images shown in the background of this PowerPoint right here. Now, what are these creatures? Most commonly seen in Africa and Southeast Asia, these creatures are commonly thought of as armadillos, but this is actually not true. They are actually closely related to anteaters. Seen in the image here, they actually have a very long tongue that is very useful in finding the termite population of Southeast Asia and Africa. This tongue here can grow from 10 to 14 inches, and since that their mouth is not that large, they actually have a special pouch within their body that sort of resides next to the stomach, that the tongue kind of just curls around in. As we go further down the anatomy of the pangolin, we see that it has a very long tail. This tail can actually reach from 10 to 28 inches, and some subspecies of pangolins in Africa actually use this tail to hang on trees. This can be used to find a resting spot, eat leaves from trees, or to hide from predators during the evening. Now we're going to talk about the most glaring part of the pangolin, that being its scales. These scales make up 20% of its body weight, and just for reference, pangolins can weigh from 10 to 60 pounds, so that's either 3 pounds of its weight or 20 pounds of weight just from the scales alone. The reason of this weight is that they're made of keratin, which is actually the same material that fingernails are made out of, very tough material. These scales actually harden 2 days after the birth of the pangolin. The main purpose of these scales is to roll up in a defensive state. To use the 3D model, they kind of just tuck their tail between their face, or vice versa, and roll up in a state like this. They actually get their name for the Malayan word to roll up. They also, and if this isn't enough, they also give off a musk, not really a spray that the same type of a skunk does. So while they don't really spray, they actually just have a really bad odor around them at all times. Speaking of the scales, we're going to talk about the reasons of endangerment. This animal is highly poached. Scales go for about $300 per kilogram, or $1,800 to $1,200 per pound. The meat is seen as a social status among the rich people of the areas nearby that can have access to these animals. And other goods that people poach pangolins for are actually their blood and fetuses. All the uses for the poaching are for either goods for social things, like the meat for social status, or the scales for clothes, but is most commonly used in traditional medicines of the area in Southeast Asia, most of which have not been scientifically proven to actually work. This includes remedies literally for curing cancer, insomnia, and the list goes on. None of these, again, have been actually proven to work. The poaching is actually so bad that it is predicted that 300 are killed per day, 100,000 are killed per year, and 1.2 million were killed between 2005 and 2016 alone. It has been officially labeled as the most poached animal on the planet. This is not the only reason, though. They also have a very bad reputation. Recently, with the recent COVID-19 outbreak, these animals were believed to be the immediate host of the virus. This has actually been proven untrue, and has actually been closely drawn back to the bats that actually urinate on pangolins. So pangolins are more of a bridgeway more than an intermediate host. This is actually commonly unknown among the public, and because of this, it is now being reported that pangolins are actually being killed because of this. This is actually very similar to a case that happened in Africa with civets, sort of African wild dog, when they were found to be the immediate host of SARS. Now we're going to talk about the future of pangolins. According to Traffic we have seen an increase of research and treatment. This is kind of hard to do because pangolins have a really weak immune system. They actually, not the COVID I was talking about earlier, can very commonly get diseases through other animals, including humans. This is actually like pneumonia, and they can even actually contract the flu. But with increased treatment, they are being also looked into research for being highly more reproduced, but this is also difficult. This is because that they tend to live very solitary lives. They don't mate, but for about a 6 to 8 period within an entire year. But there is progress going forward. As of July 30th, 2019, the first blood transfusion between pangolins was actually operated on. This is a big step because now that pangolins can get such things such as blood transfusions, that means that we can take the blood of pangolins and use it for research to find cures for diseases that they may be suffering or things such as that. There's also sanctuaries all over Taiwan to save these creatures, but this is tricky. Pangolins cannot be kept in close captivity for long. Like I said earlier, they have a very weak immune system. So they must be released into a somewhat natural habitat, which is the reason for the sanctuaries. As of 2016, the furthest step has been made. Traffic reported that in a large-scale convention of poaching items, many items such as ivory were banned. But the most important one was the complete ban of selling pangolin-related goods in China, Africa, and globally. This is actually a huge step because a very large market, other than the black market that the scales and meat, blood, and fetuses were sold on, pangolins were very commonly sold in traditional local markets of the area. So, in conclusion, these creatures are very sought after, but for incredibly wrong reasons. While we don't mean to disrespect local Chinese or African medicines of the area, without scientific research, these animals are being unwrongfully slaughtered, but hopefully in the future, with increased research and increased bans on related goods for these animals, we can actually start to notice and appreciate these creatures for a less bad reason. Thank you for listening.